Welcome back, everybody. Guess what? We are still in Grapevine, Texas.
Oh, my goodness.
Here at the Super Conference.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Where are the grapevines?
That is a great question.
Yeah.
Why is it called
I haven't
Grapevine?
seen it.
Actually,
Grapevine around.
when we were at Chicken and Pickle,
Yeah.
did you notice next door was a place that was for sale, and it looked like there was a bunch of grapevines? Did you see that?
Oh, okay, yeah.
But it was just
I haven't seen
steaks.
Did you see that?
But there was just steaks. There was no
Yeah, but it
grapevines
looked
there.
like it might have been a grapevine or a winery or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was a winery.
Oh,
Sorry, didn't mean to.
but they closed
digress.
down, so there's no more grapevines.
No, so now it's just Vine.
Now it's just
Yeah.
fine. That's where we're at.
Here we are in Vine, Texas. they killed all the grapes. Anyway, we're here at the Super Conference once again, and still haven't actually got to the opening ceremonies tonight. Looking forward to it. It's going to be fantastic.
Yes.
I'm joined again with by Jason Patel, a ATI coach, Keith Manich, director of the collision department of ATI, and we're here with Anthony Wrixon from OC Automotive and Diag. Did I get that right?
Yes.
And he is in La Habra, California. So you went from the beautiful beaches of California to the deserts of Texas.
Yeah.
Well, it seems to be a common theme. There's a lot of LA people moving to Texas.
Oh yeah, that's constant. They're either going to Texas or Idaho seems to be
Yeah.
the two
Wyoming
places.
is a big hotspot too.
Really.
Yeah.
I heard Tennessee as well.
Yeah,
A lot of people-
Nashville.
Yep.
Yep.
Everybody's
Now it's
heading
coming to
out.
Charlotte. We're on that now. So
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was when I went to school, I was in Mooresville.
Yeah, NASCAR
so-
tech.
That's
yeah.
where George is.
Yeah.
He lives in Mooresville.
George
Oh
East.
really?
Yeah.
Oh okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the NASCAR Institute, or like they have
Just
a
knock
bunch
on
of
his
stuff
door
there.
one day.
Yeah.
There we go. There we go. Well, let's get right into it. Tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about you, about your shop. How did you get to where you're at now?
Yeah. Well, I essentially started my journey to automotive. It was in 2002 when I went to school. After I graduated high school and everything, I was working towards being an architect, and that kind of just took a turn. And I finished a couple years of school, and I just thought like, okay, I need a break. And then that break took a little longer than I thought, so I figured I got to do something else. I was always into cars, so I just thought, okay, I got to go to school, do the right thing. So I chose going there just because I felt like it offered a lot of different things that, like, they have a UTI that was 30 minutes from my house. And I was like, okay, well, I want to go somewhere. I want to do something. So that's how it started. And then after that, I got out, went into dealerships, kind of in and out of dealerships, and then eventually went to independent shops. And I liked it a lot better, just because of the wide range of cars to learn and get, familiar with. So that went that route. And the last shop I was there for 9 years. I was the foreman. This was an incredible shop. I mean, my boss at the time was just like, he was already a part of a lot of things. He's actually part of ATI now. But before that, he was part of different management groups, but he had it all down. And like, it flowed down to us, and I was like, this is amazing. This is great. He sent me through all these schools and got my smog license, got this, got that. So, and then after a while, things started to change there. So it was like kind of at a crossroads. I was talking to my wife, and I'm like, I don't want to go work for somebody else. Like, and she's like, well, we've already talked about this a lot, so maybe this is the time. And I'm like, I don't know. Of course, she would joke to say that she pushed me with both hands and both feet to go do it. So we started looking. We started looking for shops, but prior to that, I know I was just telling you, Jeff, but she actually is the one who found ATI and found, just read some articles about ATI and what they're all about. And then she found some one-day boot camps that she's like, I think we should go to these and see kind of what are people doing wrong, what is, before we even start. So I was like, yes, of course, let's do it. And so that's how we got introduced to ATI. I came away with that with a lot of material for me to implement right away. So that was great. And then after about 2 years, we kept attending the one-day boot camps. And then after about 2 years, we finally had enough like financial data to like see if we could be a part of ATI. And we got the green light. And, it was obviously really hard in the beginning just because of, okay, how are we going to afford this? Right now we have all these expenses, all these things, but you guys were saying like you're not even going to feel it. You're going to join the that's not even a worry. So we just took a shot at it and went for it. And now it's been 6 years that we've been a part of ATI. So that's pretty much that. I mean, we've been in business for 9 years, and we're just running, man. We're going since 2015.
Awesome. And that's one thing I think that you brought up is very important about when you join any kind of coaching company, for that matter. The goal should be to be able to recoup some of that cost and start getting an ROI. But the problem also is if you don't listen and if you don't apply, that it's not going to apply to you at the end of the day. So it seems like you actually used the information that you were receiving and learning, and you applied it, which helped you get to where you're at now.
For sure. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you mentioned when we were talking prior to this that obviously you didn't join ATI right away. You really didn't even have a shop yet.
Right.
But you did take away some tools from that boot camp.
Yes.
And so talk a little bit about that.
I guess the main thing that we came away with, I feel, was some procedural things on how things should be handled. But the main thing was probably the price matrixing for like parts. I would talk to other shop owners. They'd be like, "Oh, you just times 2, for whatever." And like, okay, is that what you're supposed to do? And then obviously we got a breakdown in our books, and I was like, okay, this is a little different. And then, so I feel like that was the main tool that we took away from it. I guess the other thing that we, talking to other shop owners and talking to even the guy that was running the event that day was like, do we try to start our own shop from like the ground up, or do we try to buy a shop and do that? And, he gave the analogies. It was, it's easier to like restore a car when you have a car already rather than trying to build a car from like scratch. And we're like, okay, well, obviously we don't have money to buy a shop. So we were just like, we got to do it from the ground up. And honestly, I feel like that was the best kind of way. That was the best road for us, cause you just get all those building blocks of how you get it there. You don't come in halfway built and, you don't understand what happened before that. So I feel like that part for us was a huge takeaway. But yeah, just that, and a lot of little things about basically not what not to do, like try to stay away from doing these things. So I feel like those are I think that's bigger takeaways.
What not to do is like that's the highlight right there.
Right.
Because there's so much things that you can do. So if you figure out what not to do and you don't do those, you're going to save yourself so much time and hassle.
Right. For sure.
So one of the things that we were talking earlier, it's coming in on the ground floor like that, and I'm gonna, because I'm the old guy here, being young
That feels good.
and doing that, being young and doing that. How did you? What guided you the way that you went, so that you were using all that information, not making mistakes?
No, we definitely made a lot of mistakes. Like, don't get me wrong. So that was for sure. But I feel probably one of the biggest things for me, was my immediate family, I guess I want to say, like, and the responsibilities I already had. So I was like failure is not an option at all. Like there is and I was already like hungry, and I was a flat rate tech, and so I was used to like grinding to make my paychecks, to make the most I can possibly do. Like nobody had to tell me like, well, you got to try to shoot for this goal. I'm like, I'm going like more than that. So I was that guy at that time, and I still am. But I felt like, my family, like having kids, having a mortgage already, having all that, I felt like, so those things were like always in the back of my head. I knew obviously how to repair cars. I knew procedures because, like I said, from the shop I was at, I had that stuff. So I felt like those are the things that really kept me going and kept me focused. Talking to other people, I tried not to, even other owners in my complex. Because, I was slow in the beginning. Like, I mean, maybe the first couple of months, yeah, sure, I had friends, family, people coming in, but like it wasn't the steady flow. So I was talking to other guys, and they're just so jaded already, and I was still like not that way. And I'm like, okay, like, all right, thank you, but bye. So those things, but I felt like honestly it had to be, just, I guess, my wife, driving like the faith thing behind me. Obviously we're Catholic, we're very like faith based, but she's just like, you got to believe, God's going to help us, God's going to do it. And so I just kept going and trying to be positive about it. And slowly but surely, our name started getting out there. And yeah, so then the flow started to come, so.
So was it more process focused, or were you just being driven?
I think it was more being driven. Yeah.
Okay.
If you ask my wife, she'll say my processes are terrible. Like, so she's my biggest critic, but no, I think it was that just like, there's no giving up. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, they're going to drag me out of here.
I'm fascinated by something you just said. That you looked at other shop owners, obviously experienced shop owners,
Right.
and somehow realized whatever they were thinking or saying to you was not happening.
Oh, for sure. All the
What
time.
is it? I mean, because someone coming in at your young age doing this, I would think would look up to that as a mentorship
Mhm,
and helpful. And how did that not happen for you? What was going on? 'Cause I don't know that you're wrong. I'm just
He's not wrong.
blown away by that.
I guess like I said, since I was obviously younger than they were and they're already at that point where they're not, a lot of these shops, they're in my little complex, they're one owner, like one, operator, like they're doing all of it, or they may have one guy.
Yeah.
So I felt like their idea of where they wanted to be or what they wanted to do was not mine. So my idea was like, like I said, I came from a really good shop. So I could see how my boss there set it up and how we had techs, we had advisors, we had all that. And being at a dealership, it was the same. So I felt like that was more like my goal, to be there and do that. And I got told so many times from these guys, like, this is, like, whatever you're thinking is not going to really happen, and I just was like, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
But it sounded to me, though, what I'm hearing, he had sort of a mentor
Yeah.
in the place he was before,
Right.
that
But-
he liked and
He had a good foundation.
Yeah.
behind him.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's interesting is like, I never reached out to him for help ever at all. Like, and he told me too, of course he did not want me to leave. He did everything he could to make me stay there. But he even told me, he's like, you ever need anything, call me, my number, this and that. But I'm kind of one of those people that don't really look for help ever unless I really need it. But like, I'm not going to call on somebody to ask a question. Like, I'm just going to, like, I got to figure it out. Like, that's, so I still have like a little bit of an old school mentality, I guess, when it comes to that stuff. Like, and then dealing with, we'll probably get into that, but like with the guys, my guys today, they're all young and they don't do that. They're not big problem solvers. One of them, yes, but the other ones, no.
Elaborate just a little bit. So in listening to what I'm hearing, and I think Keith's right, you had a strong foundation from a good mentorship and the 9 years, you said 9 years you spent.
I was there for 9 years.
I mean, that's
Wow.
a lot to be involved in something so structured and so
Mhm.
well put together,
Mhm.
whether you think you're structured well or not.
Right.
You're probably further along than most.
Right.
So that being said, looking at these other shops that you said was one or two or three people giving you advice and saying, if I'm you, I'm thinking, oh, you're small, built to stay small, and you think small.
Mm-hmm.
I can't listen to this.
For
This-
sure.
This is the opposite of what I'm
That's
looking
right.
Yeah,
for. Is that a fair statement?
absolutely. Yes.
And you recognize that.
Yeah. I mean, I was still like, I want to maintain a good relationship because obviously that's not me. I'm not that way. Like, unless you burn me for some reason, then sure. But, just because you never know when you might need a hand or you might need, a tool or need something. And I'm the same way. Hey, you need something and I got it, you can use it. But yeah, so I just, I would just kind of like, I don't know, humble them in a sense. Like, I would just like, oh, okay, yeah, thanks. Like, what, I don't know. I wouldn't even listen.
So like, and I can relate to his exact way because when I opened up my shop in LA, I was 20,
Mhm.
and it's the exact same
That's
thing,
nuts.
right? Where people,
That was 2 weeks ago, by the way.
Yeah, right. I know.
All right.
Yeah.
But I know exactly what you mean, right? People want to give advice to act like if they were in your position, if they were that age, right?
Right.
And most people don't want. That's the other thing. Most people don't want you to succeed
Sure.
past where
Oh.
they've got to. Right?
Oh yeah.
So especially when they're in your same complex, that's
Right.
that's when it's really you can't be the top dog here.
Right.
You just got here.
Right.
So, and one thing I like what you said is you didn't have failure as an option,
Right.
right? So now when we're looking at younger generations and people have a lot of options. When you have a plan B, you stop looking at plan A,
Mm-hmm.
and then you had so many responsibilities.
Right.
So that's when people don't have something to drive them.
Absolutely.
The responsibility is what's going to drive you no matter what. So
Right.
you had a mortgage, you had family stuff
Right.
and all that. So you didn't have any other option. You made it work. And then what to Jeff and to Keith's perspective, I mean, you guys both said that even though you didn't see that shop as a mentor, right? You were there for 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you were absorbing. I mean, you were just absorbing as much stuff as you could.
Sure.
You were moving up the ranks.
Sure.
So you were learning all of these processes, whether you even thought of it as a process or not.
Right.
So you were already like in that mindset.
Right.
And I'm just so happy that you didn't let other people influence you to get to that.
So to that point, I'm thinking about the general shop owner out there. How many of them had the fortunate experience to have 9 years under tutelage like that versus the shops that you recognized
Mm-hmm.
were not, mentoring you in the way that they should? How many people grew up in that environment?
Right.
And what are they thinking now when they start their business?
Well, I mean,
Right.
just today or even yesterday, all of the podcasts that we've had, that when they started their shops, it was because they were running away from the shop that
Yep.
they were at. They were not doing things that they liked.
Right.
For you, it was kind of the opposite. You actually liked what was going on. You kind of, I wouldn't say replicate it, but you wanted to do something to that
Very
magnitude.
similar. Yeah. I mean, the main reason why it came to that point was like my service manager, he ended up leaving and he was, I mean, since I started, he was and this guy was incredible. It was just great. And then,
So he did to you what you did to him.
yeah. Oh yeah.
How's
For
that
sure.
feel?
Oh yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. So that there was like changes there, like in I guess being, a flat rate tech at that time, I'm like, okay, now this is like screwing with my like pay. This is like, okay. So, and my boss again at that time was amazing guy. He's just like, look, I know things are not what you're used to right now, but don't worry. I'm going to make sure that you're taken care of in a sense. So yeah, if I was short on hours and he would take my averages of where I was at, he would still pay me what I was getting paid. Cause he knew like, I got a family, I have this, I have a mortgage, I have all these things, a car payment, this and that. And so he didn't want me to suffer because things were, and that, I let that go for at least 8 months. I stuck around. I didn't just leave, but I was already thinking it's time to figure out the next move. But yeah, I think when you come from a bad shop and then, you obviously want to leave because you want to do things differently. And that was a little bit of what I wanted as well. I saw the holes and things. And so I was like, I want, if it was my place, but of course, and you get into it right away. You can't just start implementing all that stuff. That's going to take time. So I feel like now I'm at that area of like, okay, like just, starting to fix different things.
Let me ask you a question. When your person left you, what caused that?
You mean when the service manager
Yeah,
left?
your service manager left you. And did you think about kind of where you were coming into the business? And now this person, he's got a great job, you're doing well, and now he's leaving. How did that conversation go with
He
that
didn't even
person?
tell me.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. It was a bad, so he, I think, was already thinking about leaving that shop. And then, what he did was pretty shady. Even I was like, I feel like my dad left me or something, like it was one of those situations, but he took off like a week or like a vacation week, but he actually went to another shop to do a week of like training
No
there to see if
way.
he really liked it.
Wow.
And nobody knew, like no, not even my boss, nobody knew. And then when I remember that like Monday or that my boss coming out into the shop and he kind of gathered us all up and he was like, the way he said it, I thought that the service manager died or something. He was like, such and such, he's gone. And I was like, what do you mean he's gone? And he was like, he's no longer going to be here. And I was like, Dan, I thought he was dead. Like, what is your problem? Like, but you could see in his face to him, he what? Like, it's just like as if he died or something. Cause he was just like, he was the savior. He was Superman of that whole place. So anyways, that's what happened. And yeah, like I said, I felt like it's like one of those things like, hey guys, I'm gonna go out for milk, and then they never come back, So that's how I felt.
I think we misinterpreted it. So it was the service manager.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Yeah, I thought it
Oh,
was
you
your
thought it was
employee.
mine.
Yeah.
Oh no,
Yeah.
sorry.
Well,
Sorry,
but-
folks.
but-
Yeah.
There was no karma here.
Yeah.
No karma.
Oh, sorry.
No, but even,
I interpreted the same way.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
but even still, what was something you learned from that you can use in what you're doing now?
I think probably the biggest thing I think of that was just that was just a really crappy thing to do. Like, and so like you don't burn people like that unless, so I feel like in relationships, I guess, like if you're going to part ways, like just kind of be a man about it and, just say, hey, this is not working out, like, whatever. Or if there's hey, can I help? Can there something we can do to change things? Unfortunately there isn't. I've already taken another position somewhere and that's that, So I feel like that, like I feel like with relationships and with all, like in that regard, like I give a massive respect to anybody until I feel like they're not doing the same back to me. And then at that point, then I'm like, okay, well, this is not a two-way, communication kind of thing. So if that's the case, then, so I feel like that, I guess, to answer the question, is just kind of don't burn your bridges, I guess, something like that.
Yeah. And here's why I asked that question. As we get a younger and younger workforce, which we're seeing, we know that maybe we'll get 2.5 years out of them.
Mm-hmm.
So when we bring them in, what are some of the things that we could do to hold on to that younger generation that's coming into our workforce?
Well, I think we kind of started discussing this on our last podcast, even, where bringing some skin in the game, right? So with the younger workforce, what's the biggest thing that we're seeing? Just the economy, right? The last couple of years, everything it costs more, right? Like if somebody goes to buy a house right now, I mean, they can't buy a house on a $50,000 or $60,000 salary. It's not going to happen.
Sure.
Even $85,000, you're still struggling to buy a house in a decent area, right? So it really becomes, how are we keeping that relationship? How are we building that relationship? How are we giving them some skin in the game? How are we building that stickiness as a shop? And you said most of your workforce right now is younger, right?
Yeah.
And so what are you doing in terms of trying to keep that stickiness?
So obviously I pay them hourly, so they're on hourly, but they are also flagging all their hours, so they have like a bonus structure
so
on
progressive
that.
hours.
Right, exactly. So that, and with my service writer, it's the same thing. We certain sales number, like it's a whole chart from ATI. It's from that. So so we're just following that, and then obviously trying to make just trying to like let them know that they're kind of in a sense they can build their own paycheck, so that's like a really thing, and that's how it was for me. Like, so I'm trying to pass that on and give them some kind of fire to like want to hey, I could make $1,200 this week, or I can make $1,500 this week. I can do, it's up to them,
What about the relationship aspect of it? Like, how you had that service manager in that previous role, how they left, right? That kind of wrecked a lot of those bridges, and didn't feel like that at the time until it happened.
Right.
So what are you doing in your shop to kind of build those relationships with your workforce?
I mean, we are doing one-on-ones. They're not happening probably as often as they should, so I'm trying to work on that. There's, I think that our communication is really good between everybody.
There we go.
So like that, like it's like, even Jeff always, says like you build a safe environment. It's like a safe environment. I sit down with them. If I can tell one of them is kind of going through something, like, I'll pull them aside, and I don't want to be their, like their psychologist or something, but at the same time, I'm like, hey, if I can like help in some way to, hey, look, like we could do this, or so I feel like that. I just try to be really open with them. Sometimes they feel like it's like I'm their buddy and they get away with saying some things. I'm like, dude, I'm still your boss. Like, you can't tell me that. Like you shouldn't tell me that. And the fact that you feel comfortable telling me that maybe I need to tone it down too with like the openness. But I feel like that.
It's pretty safe though.
It is safe.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's
it
true.
sounds like the way you respond is appropriate.
Right.
Oh yeah, probably. Right. It's kind of a ha-ha, and it keeps it safe. And
Right.
Well, okay, I've closed off now. I can't talk to him.
Right.
That's really important to remember. And I think you understand that even unconsciously as you're sharing that with us right now, which is really what that says to me. Very intuitive.
Yeah.
Very.
Thank
very
you.
You're nailing that aspect of the relationship.
Absolutely.
It's hard to do that with a younger workforce. I
Right.
mean, it's difficult. I mean, yes, we can have that camaraderie, right? You can have that bond, especially if most people that are working on cars, they're into cars.
Right.
And, they're especially in California, Los Angeles, it's the mecca of cars.
Right.
So there's always that relationship there. But then you're able to add that other layer where they're comfortable, like you said, in a safe space to be able to even overshare.
Yeah.
Which I think that's a great thing.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, I know. Even I'll say something to my wife and she's just like, they're not supposed to be talking to you about. She's very, like it's it's time to be cool, that's cool.
Yeah.
But when it's time to be a boss, I'm like, well, I do that. But other than that, I would just say, we, whenever we do meetings, obviously we buy lunch for everybody. We do all, those things, somebody's birthday, all that stuff, or like, anniversaries, we do ditch days too, like once a quarter, we'll just close at 12 o'clock and then we'll go have lunch. If they want some drinks, have drinks, and then we'll go like go-karting or bowling or do stuff like that.
There
And
we go.
then if I'm like, it's 5 o'clock, like you guys are free to go, or if you want to stay, like, I'll, shoot you a couple $100 if you guys want to still play or, have some drinks or that, but I'm jetting, so that they can keep it
Sure.
going, and then they can build their own, we're with each other. So much out of a work week. It's like they have to also be, like really good friends with each other, so I feel like that helps.
I mean, you spend more time with who you work with
Right.
than you do at home with your
Yeah,
family.
absolutely.
I think an important thing to remember too, in my generation, when we're looked at as, we're the boss,
Mm-hmm.
we always really separated ourselves from,
Sure.
the workforce. And that's one thing I like seeing about the younger generations, that the camaraderie is there.
Yeah.
But you do have to draw lines.
Right.
And I think the big thing with that is, if we're training somebody to be like a second in command,
Mm-hmm.
what are the boundaries?
And where does that authority, like,
Yeah.
how do you
Right.
establish that authority?
Because that's
difficult.
vital,
Yeah.
but it's vital to moving the business forward, that you have that segmented like that. But you've got to do it in such a way where you're not turning people off.
Right.
And that's, my generation didn't do a good job of that.
Well, actually, I mean, you guys did a decent job too, though, because you guys developed hierarchies,
You.
right? No, well, I'm saying,
He threw
right?
himself under the bus.
No,
and
no,
you-
no, no.
He yanked him out of there, man.
Yeah, I think I honestly do believe that in previous generations, you guys did a very good job in developing those hierarchies. But the problem was the barrier of entry, right? That was the most difficult part, and there was no transparency. What the younger generations have solved that in a sense is because of TikTok, because of Instagram, because of YouTube. There's so much transparency now that there is no more barrier of entry.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to get a position, you know exactly what to do to get there, and you can find exactly who to call or email, right? Because we have LinkedIn. There's just so much resources out there, and that's one thing. Even in the automotive industry, like, we're building all of these. We're building a good foundation as making the shop how it needs to be, having the processes, having the people, but then having that camaraderie aspect of where everything is still pretty linear, even though there are some boundaries there. It becomes challenging how to develop that hierarchy, but everybody still knows that he's the boss. Everybody still knows that, yeah, he could fire me, and whatever. And then whoever you get as your second in command, that's where that challenge is going to be, is trying to get those boundaries set, because now it's going to be, okay, can that second in command also hire and fire? And does he get the last say, or does it go to the boss, the actual boss? I mean, that's where it's going to become a little bit challenging, but I feel like you're already navigating that.
I would add to all of this, that when you look at the older generations versus this younger generation, the millennials that we're talking about here, is that the keys to the world came to work.
Oh, yeah.
And this younger generation is coming to work, but they're also looking to expand their social networks.
Yeah.
It's part of their identity
Sure.
in a different way. For the older guys, it was about making money and buying stuff and providing for their families. For the younger generation, it's about making money, providing for their families, and increasing their social network. It's different. And it's not even about getting stuff. These people don't want stuff.
Right, yeah, for sure.
Right? So it's very, very different in that way. And when we recognize that, and we can build a world where they can expand their social network, now they stay longer than that 200 years. That's the solution
hard part.
to what you just said. So, and you already understand that. You're part of that too.
Right.
So it's easy to understand.
Well, even building on top of that, right? So if you look in other countries, especially Europe, they have what's called a third place, right? So your first place is your house. Your second place is your job. Now you have a third place that's where you go hang out, right? And they don't have their work hours and all that is structured very differently. So work is there to help as a resource. It's not what you like. When you ask people, what do you do in the US, they automatically tell you what they do for money,
living,
what
right.
they do for work. When you ask people in other countries, what do you do? They're telling you what they enjoy doing, their hobbies and stuff like that. And they have that third place. That's where everybody goes and hangs out and does all that other stuff. And it seems like what you're doing, even with your shop, is you're kind of blending that second and third place together. And then you guys are having an extension, going out, doing
Sure.
outings and all of that. And that's where that becomes more along the lines of that lifestyle that younger generation is looking for. We have to kind of develop that third place because let's face it, I mean, the younger generation, they're not having kids as early as, their early 20s anymore. I mean, they're pushing that. Some people are not even having kids. They're having fur babies, dogs.
Yeah, right.
Right. So, and I'm one of them. I've got 2 dogs, right? So it's like, the dynamic is changing. Like you said, it's not just always about just providing for your family only and just making as much money as you can. It's about having something else, that third place.
It's very true. Yeah, because I try to find that, or what I come to find is that, so all 3 of my techs, not married, no kids, they're single. They don't even have girlfriends.
Oh, man.
And my service advisor, he's engaged to be married and he has a 5-year-old daughter. So like I see the difference in like he's always trying to shoot for the sales goals because he wants to make more money. He's got a wedding in next year, So the other guys though, they're not motivated by money that much. Like they're just not like and all 3 of them, they still live at home. So like, and I got, it's a 25, 28, and I think my foreman just turned 30. So like I try to find other ways to motivate them, and I've asked them like, because I have their structured things. So like trying to get them to produce hours is like it's hard. Like it really is. Like that's where I feel like the struggle is. But so I've even told them like, if it's not money, then what is it? Like paid days off? Do you want to earn like an extra couple paid days off a month? Like gas cards, gift cards. Whatever, like just something, whatever. So I try to open that up, but it's funny because they're not really receptive even then sometimes. They're just like, I don't know.
Well,
and they just look at me and I'm like,
Well, you brought up the point right there, right? They're still living at home, right? So they don't have those financial burdens.
Right.
And no kids and stuff like that, right? And for you, it was different. You already had that,
for sure,
right?
dude.
And there's some people that have that drive naturally,
right,
without having the responsibility. Right. But if you're comfortable, that's the killer of progress, right? So they are getting comfortable. I mean,
sure.
and it's because this is no matter what we think about the automotive industry, it is still a well-paying industry. Like you can make decent money as long as you don't get, on that Snap-on truck every week. You're going to be all right.
Yeah, that's another problem.
So there's a lot of options here, and it really is just navigating. And sometimes things just do take time.
Right.
You just got to have somewhat of an outline for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.
Well, let's do takeaways then.
Oh, I get to go first?
This time you go first.
Wow.
Oh, and Jeff, by the way, he's an instructor and also a coach at ATI. He didn't introduce himself.
Right. Thank you, but
it's a little late now.
I don't even think about that. But anyhow, so my takeaway is this, and it's really refreshing to talk to guys like Anthony because he represents the future of 40 years from now, right? He's the business owner that a lot of us once were. Well, not you, but you're too young. But you are still a business owner. But actually, you represent that too. You're part of that same group. And so, I see that, and I see what my generation and older, what they did. And it's the opposite of what I'm hearing from Anthony, right? They came to work, they fixed cars, they went home. And they did well, and they did okay. And at the end of it, they had a business to sell, and hopefully there was something there. But most of them regretted their journey. Most of them wish they'd done something different. Most of them saw at the end of their journey, they got to do something different now so they can get it ready to sell, or so they can get it ready for whoever's second in command and taking over, or whatever it might be. And I see guys like Anthony, and I think, wow, the future is absolutely wide open for whatever he wants, because he is thinking about the end of that journey at the beginning of his journey. And therefore, the path to the end will not only be way more fruitful, it could turn into so many different opportunities. Who knows? You could have 10 locations before this whole thing is over. But when you
stressing me out with that.
But whatever you want, right? But when you come to work every day just to fix cars and go home, you end up being that shop that gave you that bad advice that you recognize.
Yeah, for sure.
And the fact that you are able to say, I'm willing to learn and grow, and I'm going to listen to my coach, and that you even have a coach at this age just tells me that if I am around at the end of your journey, I can't wait to see what it looks like. 'Cause I am so excited for
Well,
you.
thank you.
That's my take.
You really tied the whole podcast in.
Yeah,
That was phenomenal.
good.
I should have gone last.
Yeah,
You're right.
blew it. Yeah. Go ahead, Keith.
I think for me, seeing that the future's in good hands,
Oh,
that's important to me, because for 40 years now, I've been working to make sure that the people I teach and I mentor take that kind of thing away from what we're teaching them. And so to see that, that's good. We're doing our job.
there we go.
I feel that, again, kind of what we're doing. Well, first of all, thank you guys for you keep saying young guy, young this, because I'm not that young. So
Look at me.
No, I'm just saying I'm 41, so I'm not that.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
not that
old.
young. So I'm taking the compliments. I'm loving that.
I got a son that's older than you.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
41 is old.
I guess for me, I think one of the takeaway or something that I can give advice to like anybody that's thinking about doing it is do obviously your research behind it. Like, don't think too much about it or overthinking things, because then you're never going to do it. And I feel like a lot of like Jeff was saying a minute ago, it's like what's happening now. Like, I always set all these goals for like, okay, by the time I'm 40, I don't want to be wrenching anymore. That happened at 37, so I'm like setting all these goals out. Things are happening faster. And a lot of it is because I'm listening to my coaches. I'm listening, and I haven't been the most, involved in ATI. Like, there's a lot of things I haven't done yet, which I'm starting to finally catch up on. I know I've been in a lot of Jeff's classes lately, but I'm like trying to get into all that, because that's where I feel like I'm trying to focus now, is like, employee engagement and more leadership things and more of that. So like, I'm trying to, almost phase not myself out. I'll always be in it, but, opening the opportunity to like have more family time, have more of this, have more of that. And, like Keith mentioned, like, like I only ever knew grind. I just knew one day I'm not going to be able to do that. So like, I got to figure out how to do, and it's just happening so much faster. It's so much faster than I could have ever thought, so I got to, just enjoy the moments that, I'm getting, like even here, like having my family here, like all that stuff. I think the biggest key for me is just trying to enjoy the moment more. Stop thinking so much about the future, even though it's really hard to not do that. And trusting like, your guys, as long as you're implementing those things right, like, just don't second guess them, So I don't know if that was a good takeaway.
That was great. So my final takeaway would just be, try to make your business or have some kind of a third place. The third place is what's going to build that stickiness.
Yeah. I was going to say that as well. When you mentioned that stuff, I was like, oh man, that's a great way to put it. Like, or that. So yeah, absolutely. Make it sticky.
Make it sticky. There we go. There we go.
Well, another successful half hour.
Yeah.
Well,
So thank you all for joining us. And in the words of Kim, be kind to each other and make good choices.